And good afternoon, everybody. I'm Ann Vandersteel, and welcome to Steel News. Well, we're going to be talking about West Virginia today because we're on the march towards the primaries and towards November election. West Virginia, well, those folks, they are incredible people, and they don't need another senator who just blends right into the swamp in D.C. They need someone who understands coal miners, natural gas workers, veterans, families battling fentanyl, and small towns trying to keep hospital opens, parents trying to keep their freedoms intact. Yep, the 2026 West Virginia Republican primary is May 12th, 2026. That's when West Virginians decide who carries their voice into the United States Senate. And right now, Washington is drowning in corruption scandals. The Epstein files continue to hang over powerful institutions. Americans are asking who knew what and when. They're asking why there's still all these redactions in these files. And Americans are asking who is protected. But here is the question that West Virginia voters are really asking. How does corruption in Washington affect my paycheck? How does it affect my energy job? How does it affect the price of groceries? How does it affect my community safety? Well, artificial intelligence is exploding across the globe. Massive data centers are demanding enormous power. China is building coal plants like crazy. Yet Washington regulators, they're attacking American energy. If West Virginia energy is shut down, AI growth won't stop. It'll just move overseas, and our families will lose those jobs as well. The opioid crisis continues to devastate the state of West Virginia. Fentanyl pours across the border, and rural communities carry the burden. Washington holds these hearings. Big deal. West Virginians, they're burying their loved ones. The Second Amendment rights matter in the state of West Virginia. Religious liberty matters there as well. Parental rights, veterans matter. But we're not just talking about abstract politics in West Virginia. We're talking about energy dominance, border security, drug enforcement, federal overreach, intelligence accountability, government integrity, and veteran support, and how all of it impacts West Virginia families. Tom Willis is a Special Forces Green Beret. He's an active duty National Guardsman. He's a constitutional attorney. He serves in the West Virginia State Senate, and he's now running in the Republican primary May 12th of 2026. The voters of West Virginia will decide whether they want continuity or confrontation. We're going to ask Tom the questions that deeply matter to West Virginians, and by default, all Americans. This is about more than party. This is about whether West Virginia sends a senator who will fight. So let's begin. Tom, welcome to Steel News, and thanks so much for being here. It is great to have you with us today.
Thanks, Ann. Great to be with you. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, my pleasure. Listen, I love doing these interviews with folks that are actually deciding to dip a bigger toe in the water. You've been a state senator already, but now you're going on to the national scene, back really into the swamp, as if government isn't swampy enough, even at the state level. So, what decided you to make that catapult up onto the national stage?
That's a great question. I just defeated our lieutenant governor in my last race. He was a rhino. I view Shelley Moore Capito as a rhino as well. And so I'm running to offer the voters of West Virginia a true conservative option in the Republican primary. Like you said, it's on May 12th. So what do they get with me? I have a 100% conservative voting record, as opposed to Shelley. She has a F voting record from the conservative voting rating agencies. And I'd be happy to tell you, her long list of sins and bad votes. But really, the bottom line is West Virginians realize it's time for a change. And we're a conservative state. We operate off of traditional family values, and it's time we had someone in the U.S. Senate to represent West Virginia in that manner.
Absolutely. So, West Virginia families, you all depend on coal and natural gas. Do you commit to aggressively defend the fossil fuel production against the Environmental Protection Agency and the federal regulatory pressures?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think one of the greatest travesties to our national economy, certainly to West Virginia, was the Obama EPA war on coal during the Obama administration. It cost the state of West Virginia thousands of good paying coal miner jobs. And each one of those coal miner jobs supported, an additional 4 to 6 additional ancillary jobs. So it really devastated our state economy. I was thrilled to see the Trump administration repeal the EPA finding from the Obama administration that greenhouse gases, are a public threat, do cause harm. So that's a great start. But absolutely, I will be a champion for fossil fuels because, as a veteran, not just to West Virginia, but as a veteran, this is an economic issue, but it's also a national security issue. We need energy that's going to enable us to defend ourselves against our enemies as well.
So I've seen when I was doing a lot of reporting out in North Carolina after Hurricane Helene, the National Defense Authorization Act had a lot of energy, shall we say, carve outs in it, where the federal government was stepping in and basically staking claim to lithium, and to quartz, and other minerals in that particular area in that part of the country. Are you comfortable with the federal government having that sort of reach in there? Do you really feel like it's a matter of national security at such a level, or should the people of the state be compensated, not too dissimilar to what happens in Alaska with respect to the oil drilling that goes on? At least the people in Alaska are getting a check every year.
Well, I think you've got to balance property owners' rights versus the interest of the greater good. Certainly, natural critical resource minerals. They're a national security issue now. We're in a race with China. We're looking at legislation we're in legislative session right now in the Senate in West Virginia, and we're looking at legislation to give the state some preemption when we're talking about critical metals, critical mineral resources. So I think you have to strike a balance and make sure that we don't um, abrogate individual private property rights, that folks are properly compensated. But at the same time, we can't allow China to outpace us on this critical issue.
So, speaking of critical issues, artificial intelligence, China seems to be outpacing us at the moment, and we're doing everything we can to catch up, specifically because of the rare earths and the critical minerals that are required in order to facilitate this. So, AI data centers, they require massive electricity. Should West Virginia position itself as the energy backbone of America's AI expansion? Are you comfortable with that?
Absolutely. Yeah. West Virginia can and should be the battery for the East Coast. We have the natural resources in our coal and our natural gas to supply energy to the entire East Coast, and we should be doing that. Are we keeping pace in the AI race? Are we doing everything we can? I think the answer is no. I think that our permitting process for new power plants is still too cumbersome. I applaud the Trump administration for the deregulation. There was some monies passed recently to upgrade and perform maintenance on some of the coal power plants. But some of the utility companies, a lot of people don't realize this. A lot of the utility companies are actually run at the top levels by folks that are on the left. And so they're pushing for the Green New Deal type energies when, for instance, in West Virginia, we brought some attention to this the last year or two as conservatives took over the Senate. But we had some coal plants that their optimum peak efficiency is around 69-70% operation capacity. They were running in the low 30s. And so West Virginians were not getting the cheapest energy. The plants, were incurring unnecessary maintenance costs, and it was a policy decision by the leaders of some of the utility companies. So I'd like to see some of that change. We need to become a more fossil fuel, energy abundant type economy and slash the permitting process.
I agree with that. I think our regulatory agencies have gone far over and above what they were ever designed to do. If you're elected, would you seek a seat on the Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee to directly protect West Virginia energy jobs?
It's one of my top picks for a committee, absolutely, because of the energy resources in West Virginia. So I have a couple others that I would throw my hat into the ring for, but energy would certainly be one of the top ones. Yes.
What about net zero policies? Are they a threat to your state's economy?
I think that anytime you're talking about artificial regulation, like that on emissions, it's a threat. So, I personally believe that the greenhouse gas is a hoax. I think that the Earth has been naturally warming for centuries. The science is in on that. Even Bill Gates gave up on this argument recently. The effects of trying to control emissions to the degree that some on the left would want would just completely devastate our economy. And the other thing is we saw what happened in the COVID years. I mean, really, the entire world economy shut down. And so, what happened? The emissions barely dipped, and the result on global temperatures was negligible. So, if you completely shut down the world economy, you still don't get the results that you're after. And so, I think the solution is through free market, private enterprise solutions, and that's what I'll advocate for.
Great. Now let's move on to inflation and the cost of living because your state has been decimated by that. It hits your rural families the hardest in West Virginia. What specific policies would you support to lower energy costs and food prices in West Virginia?
Well, we need to move towards deregulation of our energy sector in West Virginia. If you look right across the border at Ohio, that has a more deregulated energy sector than we do in West Virginia. Their energy is cheaper, and their consumers are saving over $1 billion compared to what West Virginians are paying. So that's one. We also have an artificial incentive structure set up with our utility companies in West Virginia that we're working to try to change in the legislature. So currently, it's on a cost plus basis, so they get paid based on the cost of new infrastructure plus a 10% profit. So it creates an artificial incentive to generate infrastructure costs because that's how they generate profit. So we need to change that. We need to continue to cooperate with the Trump administration on the deregulation and cutting the permitting time. And so those things together, I think will make a big difference for ratepayers in West Virginia. And we need to, as far as cost of living goes, we need to make sure that we're not voting with the Democrats, which my opponent Shelley Moore Capito did. She voted with Biden 56% of the time and voted for these huge inflation-inducing spending bills that have come back home to hurt real West Virginians every day now.
Mm. Speaking of increased costs of living, Congress seems to be doing pretty well based on their own stock portfolio. Do you support banning members of Congress from trading stocks?
I support banning members of Congress from trading individual stocks. Absolutely. I think they should be allowed to invest in funds just like anybody else, but individual stocks, I would support banning that. And by the way, my opponent, Shelley Moore Capito, is rated as one of the highest insider traders in the
Mm.
U.S. Senate. It's one of the reasons I call her the Nancy Pelosi of the U.S. Senate.
Nicely done. All right, let's
Mhm.
talk about something that's very serious in your state, opioids, the crisis of fentanyl and opioids in West Virginia. And of course, the public safety concerns of the illegal immigration that have come across our border during the Biden regime has really impacted your state. You've been devastated by fentanyl, your state, that is, not you personally. Do you tie this directly to border security failures? If so, why? And if not, why not?
I do tie it directly to the border security failures. We know that this is coming across the border primarily from Mexico. Like you said, it's devastated West Virginia communities, West Virginia families. So we're doing a number of things to address it inside of West Virginia at the state legislature level. One, we just passed through the Senate today a bill that really increases penalty on human smuggling and human trafficking to cut down on the incentives to smuggle illegal aliens or to traffic illegal aliens through West Virginia. The penalties are very severe now, and by consequence, that's going to cut down on drug trafficking because a lot of it stems from that same activity. The other thing we're looking at is actually focusing on programs that work, so that when we're talking about fentanyl, we're not talking about just prevention and criminal penalties, but also treatment for those that have already been trapped by this sinister addiction. And so we're looking at putting some regulations on these Suboxone clinics that essentially are just keeping people addicted. They show up, they get a Suboxone shot, they get a fix for a day, they come back the next day, and there's never a weaning process where they come off of it. And so everybody's making money, but nobody's getting better. And so we've got some laws to change that so that proven methods are getting people off of fentanyl, off of Suboxone, and onto the path of recovery.
Fantastic. When it comes to the flow of these drugs through the Appalachian communities, would you support designating cartels as terrorist organizations?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm a special forces guy, so if we could hunt cartels, that's a dream come true job for me.
Absolutely. All right. Something a little bit more current right now. The Epstein files are still very much in the news. They're drowning out a lot of really important information, as is the Nancy Guthrie story. We've got the SAVE Act, which is looking like it's going to sort of stall in the Senate. It's passed the House barely, and it's got to get through the filibuster and get at least 60 votes. And it's not looking very positive at this time. Um, looking at this plethora of news, and the Epstein files, I just want to get a quick couple of questions out of the way because I'm just curious as your perspective. Do you support full unredacted release of the files? And if powerful political figures are implicated, would you support the prosecutions regardless of party? Because we've heard the DOJ, specifically Pam Bondi, say that if everybody is, prosecuted, the entire government would collapse. The whole system would collapse. Where I'm sitting, I'm fine with the collapse. Let's rebuild. We're at that point and alter and abolish. But I'm just curious how you're looking at all of this. What's your lens?
Yeah, so on the Epstein files, the most important thing is to protect our kids in West Virginia
Mhm.
and our kids across the United States. I couldn't care less about political figures and their careers. I hold mine very lightly. I'm going to win this U.S. Senate race, but when the time comes for me to step down from that office, I'll gladly give it up. And I enjoy my family. I enjoy my businesses. I'm perfectly happy outside the political arena. And if you're not operating like that, you're there for the wrong reasons. You're there to serve
Right.
yourself, and you're not there to serve others. So as far as the files go, I'm for full disclosure, unredacted, except for the identities of the minor victims. Obviously, we should keep that redacted to protect those victims' identities. But I say release it all and let the chips fall where they may.
Great. So if you get into the Senate, what committee besides if the former addressed one would you seek to pursue? Would it be transparency, judiciary, intelligence, military? What?
Well, I'm chairman of the Judiciary Committee now in the state Senate, and
Okay.
it's been an honor to serve there. It's the vast majority of bills that come through the Senate come through my committee now, but my real um, preference, if you will, would be finance, of course, because that's important for West Virginia. Energy, we discussed, armed services because of my military background, and then one of my real passions is foreign relations, the Committee on Foreign Relations. So
Okay.
I've lived in a lot of different countries. I spent probably 7 years of my life total living in different countries around the world. I speak 4 languages, I've operated out of 3 different embassies, and I think I've got a lot to offer on insight for our national security and our international relations from that perspective.
I look at regulatory agencies as a threat to our national security. So somebody like yourself who values the Constitution, what federal agency today operates most outside its lawful authority from where you're sitting?
I think that's the Department of Education. Education always was and should be a local issue. And anytime you aggregate power in a national bureaucracy like the Department of Education, you really run the risk. If the wrong people get in charge and they get control of all of that power, now they can dictate to our kids all across the country, whatever propaganda they choose. And we know that's happening. That has happened. Excited to see the Trump administration work to reduce the power and eliminate the Department of Education. But we can't have just a handful of bureaucrats in Washington D.C. Pushing propaganda, which is socialism, as we all know. It's racial Marxism, it's socialism, and they've been pushing it from D.C. and we've got to uproot it if we're going to save this younger generation and the future of our country.
Absolutely. When it comes to regulatory agencies, do you support the defunding of these agencies that exceed these constitutional limits? And on the heels of that, should West Virginians have more authority over their environmental and land regulations?
Yeah, I think that in general, the federal government is much too large, much too powerful, much too bloated. I think if our founding fathers came back, honestly, Ann, and saw the extent of the power
Mm,
that's exercised by the federal government over the states and over average ordinary citizens, they would be flabbergasted. So absolutely, I'm a big believer in the 10th Amendment. A lot of people don't know that one. They know the First Amendment, they know the Second Amendment,
mhm.
but the 10th Amendment says that those powers not specifically delegated to the federal government under the Constitution are reserved for the states.
Right.
And I'm willing to play offense on that. I think a lot of conservatives are typically playing defense. The left will cross a boundary, and then we'll play defense to try to reestablish the boundary. But I'm not afraid to play offense. And if we think that there's overreach by the federal government, invoke the 10th Amendment, and we can duke it out in the court system.
I love it. I interviewed somebody yesterday, Paul Renner for governor of Florida. He said he'd be exercising the 10th Amendment every single day. It's headed to the Olympics from where he's sitting, which is fantastic. We
Hmm.
need we need people to protect the states. From a cultural and Second Amendment side, I obviously know you're a Second Amendment supporter. Do you support things like reciprocity for concealed carry? Would you oppose any new federal gun control measures, or at any level across your state?
I do support reciprocity for concealed carry. We have constitutional carry in West Virginia, and I would support reciprocity across the country for that. It's a real pain, honestly, to
Yeah.
drive across certain state borders, and you have to, deal with different gun laws. It's a Second Amendment right for the entire nation, not just for individual states. And I would oppose future gun control legislation as well. Absolutely.
As a Green Beret and a National Guardsman, Tom, how has your service shaped your view of Washington's leadership or lack thereof?
Well, I've served for 26 years. I'm still in the National Guard, actually. So I've been all over the world. I've served at the combatant commands, U.S. Southern Command, U.S. Central Command, U.S. Special Operations Command, and some of the subcomponents. So I've had a real inside perspective, at least especially with the Department of Defense. I've also worked for short periods of time at the Federal Communications Commission and the Department of Commerce.
Mhm.
One thing that I take away from all of it is that there's a lot of fat that can be cut internally. And it goes back to the old 80-20 rule where, 20% of your people are producing 80% of your results. And there's some people, especially inside the government bureaucracies, if you cut them, I think the productivity of the organization will actually increase because they're anchors on everybody else. So there can still be a lot of fat trimming. And this may not be popular, but I'll say it because I've been inside of it. I mean, even within the Department of Defense, I think, especially on the contracting and civilian side, there's a little bit of fat that can be cut as well. We need to get as lean and mean as we can. We're $39 trillion in debt, and that's
Mhm.
an existential threat to our civilization, in my opinion. And we need to do everything we can to be responsible and get back to a balanced budget.
Well, I wish you the best of luck with that because it doesn't seem like there's political will in Washington, D.C., and that swamp and that 10 square miles of the District of Corruption to actually get to a balanced budget amendment, despite how hard we've tried. It seems like the CRs and the continuing resolutions are the cans that keep getting kicked down the road. Do you believe that Congress currently exercises any sort of real oversight over the intelligence community, somebody who seems to suck a lot of the resources out of the American taxpayer?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of those hearings are classified, and so I think there's a lot of things that are
Right.
going on that the general public is not savvy to. So I don't have insight. I've worked with a lot of the intelligence agencies very closely downrange and out of embassies and fighting ISIS in the Middle East and that sort of thing. But as far as what goes on in those committee hearings, I'm not privy to it, so I'm not going to speculate. My sense is that. Congress has subpoena power. They've got perjury as a tool, and so until I get there and can confirm, I'll trust that they're doing their job and overseeing these agencies.
Are you comfortable with the level of security at the border now and internal security after 4 years of a rogue regime, 30 million illegals coming across the border, and where from I'm sitting and the work I've done on the border and in Central and America and the Darien Gap, I've seen a lot of bad people come across into the United States. Are you comfortable that we're doing everything we can to eliminate the threat internally? Because, I mean, you can call a mosque a mosque. I call it a forward operating base. Sad to say, but that's what it appears to be in a lot of our country, where we really seem to be attacked from the inside now. And I'm just
Yeah.
curious, do you feel comfortable with where we are? Are we handling it? And could we be doing more?
Well, with regards to the border, I think we need to absolutely finish building the wall. And the president has done a great job of switching the incentive structure so there's not the incentive to cross the border that there was before, and human beings operate based off what's in their best incentive. And so now the border crossings have essentially dropped, close to zero. Credit to President Trump for that. He
Hmm.
deserves all the credit. While we have this lull, we need to finish construction of the wall. And I agree with you 100%. And on the immigration from Islamic countries, I think we need to have an open and honest adult conversation about this. Muslim immigration has devastated Europe. I think, frankly, Europe is lost at this point. I don't think they'll ever recover, and eventually, because of population growth,
Yep.
within the population decline in the native populations and population growth within the Muslim populations, those countries will eventually become Islamic nations. So I think that we need to take a hard look at our immigration policy, and if someone has Sharia law in their ideology, that's not consistent with our constitutional republic way of life. And I hear far too folks that are brave enough to stand up and say, if we're going to save our country, we have to stand against socialism, but we also have to stand against Sharia. Either one will destroy our civilization the way we know it.
I agree with you. I'm glad to hear you say that, and I'd like to see you champion that when you get to the U.S. Senate. I hope again we get more candidates in there that are thinking like this, more people elected that are truly America first. And on that vein, what does America first look like specifically for your state, for West Virginia?
Right. So I think internationally, I'll talk internationally first, and I'll
Mhm.
talk West Virginia. So America first, really, it's each decision should be based off of what's in the best interest of the United States. So our diplomatic interest, our economic interest, our military national security interest, our intelligence interest, and those are the variables that go into the equation, not whether another country will like us, not whether another nation is benefited or receives a benefit. It's always what's in the best interest of the United States. And at the state level, it's the exact same thing. So I will fight vigorously for West Virginia and for all the rights and privileges of being a state. I'll advocate for those as well. And again, if the federal government crosses a boundary, something that is outside the 10th Amendment, I'll push back on it and fight it.
And I see you have a post here to your beautiful wife, Sarah, for Valentine's Day. Is
Mhm.
your family fully engaged and behind this next expedition as a run for U.S. Senate?
I'm so blessed to have Sarah in my life. She's actually an immigrant. I met her on a military deployment in Macedonia, and some of my friends from the embassy knew some of her friends, and we were out celebrating. I was training with special forces from Macedonia, Croatia, and Albania, and we met literally my last night in country. I had to get on a plane about 6 hours after we met, and she gave me her phone number, and the rest is history. So she's fully on board, and I can't be more blessed.
Oh, that's fantastic. Congratulations. That's truly, truly wonderful. All right. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes here. If you want to speak to the folks in West Virginia, tell them why they should elect you, why you need to make it through the next hurdle on May 12th for the primaries so that you can move on into the general in November. Let them hear from you.
Well, thanks, Ann. I'm asking for everybody's vote in the Republican primary on May 12th. My name is Tom Willis. I'm running against Shelley Moore Capito. I'm offering a conservative option to the Republican platform, but a credible one. I'm currently a state senator and chairman of the Judiciary Committee in the Senate in West Virginia. I'm a 26-year military veteran. I'm a independent West Virginia business owner and a Christian family man. Shelley has a lot of bad votes, and I don't think folks know about that. So I'm going to run through those real quick, and I'll tell you how I'm different. And basically, she voted for red flag gun confiscation, which is the unconstitutional seizure of our Second Amendment gun rights. She just recently voted for more funding for that, doubled down on it. She's been pro-abortion her whole career. She had a chance to vote to defund Planned Parenthood multiple times, refused to do so. Conveniently, she became pro-life for this election just in time. How convenient. She skipped the vote to keep boys out of girls' sports, and that bill failed by one vote. I believe that was intentional. She's rated as an F for conservative voting by FreedomWorks, Heritage Action, the conservative voter rating agency. She has an F rating, which is the same as Nancy Pelosi, which is why I call her the Pelosi of the U.S. Senate. She voted for Afghan refugee resettlement, which brought in 100,000 Afghans that were largely unvetted, one of whom just murdered a West Virginia National Guardsman, one of my sisters, Sarah Beckstrom, and seriously wounded another West Virginia National Guardsman. That's a direct that was proximately caused by Shelley Moore Capito's dangerously naive vote to bring those people into our country, thinking that they could assimilate when 60% statistically are illiterate and they have a fourth grade education on average, and that's in their own language, not even in English. So West Virginians, I think, realize it's time for a change. It's time for this family dynasty to come to an end. And I'm offering a conservative candidate that operates off of Christian family values, that will always defend life, that will always defend our Second Amendment gun rights, that will always protect religious freedom, that will stand for free enterprise, low taxes, low regulation, protected private property rights, a secure border, law and order, and personal accountability for our decisions. And so I'm asking everybody to vote for me, Tom Willis, on May 12th in the Republican primary. And if you want to find out more information about me, you can just go to tomwillis.com and see my bio, my policies, etc. It's tomwillis.com, and asking for your support.
Great. Tom, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. I think this is a very important election in West Virginia. You are one of the big energy hubs here. And I believe that your beautiful residents of that beautiful state have been really maligned a lot by the federal government, as they have in North Carolina. There's just been an invasion. And I don't think the people's best interests have been put forward. I'm glad to see somebody who wants to step in, who's a godly man who protects the rights of the unborn, stands by our Second Amendment, is truly trying to reduce the government back down to the constitutional republic we're supposed to be. So it'd be a blessing to have you in the Senate. You have my full endorsement here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ann. Thanks for having me on the show.
Absolutely. Until next time, hopefully we can catch up with you after you win the primary, and we'll continue to follow this as you go towards the November general. I would imagine you should have no problem beating an incumbent with somebody who's standing in the position that you are. So God bless you.
Thank you. Sounds good. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. All right, West Virginia, you heard it. Voters, you guys are not naive. You heard the man. This is somebody who I think you can truly get behind, because you all understand that DC, the District of Corruption, rewards loyalty over leadership. In other words, they give the best of what they have to each other. They're not looking for good people. So it's time we set them aside and focus on what your state needs, because Washington, D.C. punishes the independents. They don't want to see people stand up like Tom for the 10th Amendment to put your state first. D.C. is always about protecting the insiders. So don't forget, your primary in West Virginia is May 12th, 2026. That date matters. It really does, because between now and then, voters will weigh serious questions. Who's going to protect energy jobs? Who's going to fight federal overreach? Who will stand against drug trafficking and border chaos? Who's going to defend the Constitution without an apology? Who's going to confront corruption, even when it's uncomfortable? National scandals, they're not distant headlines. This is all we hear about. Epstein, Nancy Guthrie. Yeah, well, when Washington protects the powerful every day, you guys out there in America are paying the cost. You're paying it in higher energy bills. You're paying it in lost jobs, unsafe communities. And you've got a weakened trust in our federal government. So guess what, West Virginia, you guys deserve clarity. I think Tom Willis is going to bring you that clarity. He's got the courage, he's got leadership, and he knows who he answers to, you, the people of West Virginia. I think Tom has laid out his case really well tonight. You guys are the voters, so you're going to decide May 12th, 2026, West Virginia speaks, and Washington's going to hear it, baby. I'm Ann Vandersteel. Thanks so much for tuning in. As always, stand firm, guard the republic. Believe me, we have a lot more to atone for the lack of being on guard for this republic for the last 150 years. We're trying to play catch up here with people like Tom Willis. I believe we can. Have a great afternoon, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Hi, I'm Ann Vandersteel. I want to talk to you a little bit about your health. Part of my daily routine is to get up in the morning and get a little exercise on. If I have time for a mile or 7, doesn't matter. I get out the door every single day. It's important to get my body moving and get that oxygen flowing through my brains. What is also equally important is what I put in my body after I exercise. I rely on vandersteelhealth.com, where I have a delicious selection of superfoods and other supplements. But first and foremost for me are my superfoods. I have a delicious shake every single day. It is organic, all made in the United States of America, non-GMO, never processed before, dehydrated superfoods. And when they reconstitute with water, milk, or whatever juice you like, it makes a delicious, healthy, plant-based protein supplement. And I say supplement because, frankly, I use this as a meal replacement. This is what's helped me lose the last 20 pounds of COVID. I'm back down to my fighting college weight, fitting in my college clothes, and feeling better than ever. So go to vandersteelhealth.com and get your delicious superfoods. Get on the transformation program with us. It's a 30-day kickoff, and it will get your day starting out great, and watch the weight just fall off, watch the energy increase, the brain fog lift, and of course the ancillary benefits in your hair, skin, and nails. All these things, you are what you eat. Remember that. Go to VandersteelHealth.com.